the Harris Football Podcast with your host, Christopher Harris.
Welcome. Yeah, welcome in. Hey, thank you very much for listening. I am Chris Harris. This is the Harris Football Podcast. I've been saying it for weeks, and unfortunately it happened. Arian Foster, one of my favorite players, and a great player, but he is assembled from old parts from the RV on Breaking Bad. And on Sunday, he blew a gasket, a torn Achilles. Foster is out for the year. Man, you'd have to say he'll be 30 before next season. Entering the final year of his contract, he could be done, which is a bummer. I'm not going to talk about Texans-Dolphins tape until tomorrow, but this is unfortunate. I think for the moment, you'd assume Alfred Blue gets first crack at the lead job, though Chris Polk is there. Jonathan Grimes is an okay player, too. Alfred Blue available in more than 80% of Yahoo leagues, and I think he's the first ad. You know, in a deeper league, if Blue is owned, Polk would come next. He had one game of double-digit carries earlier in the year when Foster was out. I think that was week 2. He's available in 98% of leagues, and Jonathan Grimes basically unowned. But, yeah, you know, the Texans pretty dysfunctional right now, not a lot of good quarterback play, not a great offense. So what you're buying in those backup Houston running backs is the possibility of touches, not the likelihood of great performances.
Today's kickoff.
Today's show is the first half of our Week 7 film review. I'll dig into the tape and give y'all some fantasy pointers, some thoughts about what happened in Jets-Patriots, Steelers-Chiefs, Falcons-Titans, and Cowboys-Giants. We'll have our listener song. And then our pal Jim McCormick is going to come by, and we'll keep watching the tape on Eagles-Panthers and Saints-Colts. Plus, we'll do a Monday night preview of Baltimore and Arizona. How great would it be if the post office was open 24/7? No more limited hours. You could get your mailing and shipping done on your schedule, and now you can when you use Stamps.com. Print postage whenever you need it right from your desk. Stamps.com will save you the time and hassle of going to the post office. No more rushing there during your busy day. Just use your computer and printer to get official U.S. postage for any letter or package. Then the mailman picks it up. And you'll save money with Stamps.com. Get exact postage the instant you need it. No more overpaying. Even get special postage discounts you can't get at the post office. We use Stamps.com to send out our swag. And right now, if you sign up for Stamps.com and use my promo code Harris, you'll get a 4-week trial plus a $110 bonus offer, including postage and a digital scale. So don't wait. Go to Stamps.com, and before you do anything else, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in Harris. That's Stamps.com, promo code Harris. Well, let's start with New York versus New England. And it's hard to imagine the Patriots actually beat the Jets with as many drops as they had. Not sure how many the NFL is actually going to charge them with officially, but, CBS counted double digits. Brandon LaFell, oh my heavens. You think he was rusty? When you're essentially benched for Aaron Dobson, you're not having a good day. LaFell dropped his first 2 targets, including one where he actually beat Darrelle Revis pretty badly. He dropped one in the 2-minute drill at the end of the first half. He dropped a big third down play in the third quarter, another one with less than 3 minutes left in the game. He was an equal opportunity dropper. If Larry Donnell is duck hands, and he is, and if Jordan Matthews is duck hands Jr., and he is, Brandon LaFell is making a run for Uncle Duck. I don't know, man. Julian Edelman had an easy touchdown in the red zone. He dropped it. James White had a drop. It actually came down to Danny Amendola. Pretty quiet for 3 quarters, but lit it up in the fourth, scoring the go-ahead touchdown and extending the final drive to. Felt like a leveling day for the Pats receiving corps. Obviously, if Edelman doesn't drop his, maybe I'm not saying this, but Amendola's now had 2 good games in a row. LaFell got a ton of targets. I'm going to have them all ranked Thursday against the Dolphins, but, probably more grouped together than we've seen previously. Edelman probably coming down a little bit, and the other guys maybe bumping up a bit. Gronk scored a game-sealing touchdown, maybe actually had another touchdown in the second quarter, but the Patriots did not challenge. Brady, he's pretty good at football. Huge conversion on a 3rd and 10 scramble in the red zone, which directly led to his running touchdown, which was a quarterback sneak. James White, he didn't replace Dion Lewis's production, but he got an end zone target. He got a goal line run instead of Mr. Trashbag LeGarrette Blount. We're going to have to see if Lewis can return in just 3 days. And the Dolphins are stout up front. This is, another game where I would expect the receiving back to potentially lead the Patriots. Maybe we'll see more of LeGarrette Blount, but, this is what he is. He is not a particularly good football player. Sometimes he falls into the end zone. Interesting to see about Lewis's health. Interesting to see if Brandon Bolden winds up active. You wouldn't say that James White set the world on fire, but he was okay. Chris Ivory saved your fantasy day with a red zone touchdown reception. And, maybe the hamstring thing was getting a little overplayed by the CBS announcers. There were definitely a couple of times when Ivory got to the corner and he was kind of slightly dragging that left leg. And he was definitely seen getting, the hamstring massaged a few times on the sidelines. But the fact is he played a lot on the Jets' final drive and really throughout the second half. So, yeah, could you say he was limited because of the hamstring? Yes, but I would also say if he was well enough to be out there, he's probably okay going forward. Ryan Fitzpatrick fumbled on the Jets' first drive and actually late in the game made some dumb decisions, threw to dumb receivers. I like Devin Smith as much as the next guy, but he's not the one I want to throw to with the game on the line. He's pretty good otherwise, Fitzpatrick was. Rob Ninkovich knocked down 4 of his passes at the line of scrimmage. The truth we have to admit here, though, is that if Brandon Marshall doesn't drop one on the goal line in the fourth quarter, the Jets may have won, and Fitzpatrick's day would have looked better, and Marshall's day, would have looked that much better, and we would have a very different story in the AFC East. We're also sponsored today by DraftKings. I know I have one commissioner-style fantasy team. Looks good on paper, just keeps losing. I had a really strong Sunday and then checked my opponent, and he set a league high for points this week. Awesome. But the good news is that even if you've been cursed in your traditional fantasy league, DraftKings is there to make every week fun. I played head-to-head against 3 of you this week. I think I have a pretty decent chance to win 2 of those. Plus the Harris Football fan page on Facebook. They started a contest that pays the top 3 finishers. Join the fan page on Facebook, and you can play there too. The bottom line is that as the NFL season keeps going, DraftKings gets more and more fun for me because now we know a lot more about players and their roles, and it becomes a really cool challenge each week. If you're interested in trying DraftKings, use my promo code Harris, and they'll give you a free game to try it out. If you're frustrated with your usual fantasy squad, trust me, DraftKings will make the rest of the season fun. That's DraftKings.com, promo code Harris.
Game Film Rewind.
Yep, let's keep going with Steelers-Chiefs. And usually when they say about a quarterback, he's good at keeping both teams in the game. What they mean is that the quarterback will make really nice plays for his own side, but he'll also make mistakes and help the other side too. In Alex Smith's case, it's that he just doesn't make plays at all. No plays. No mistakes. Nothing. So both teams stay in the game, even when the other side is quarterbacked by a third stringer. I have to say, in my league, I'm thinking of letting Smith qualify as a kicker next year. He's just the best. He's the best in the world at getting the ball on a turnover at an opponent's 14-yard line and winding up with a field goal. So anyway, all right, Charkandrick West, the Charknado. Any workload concerns we might have had because of his inopportune fumble in Week 6 certainly went away this week. Niall Davis was pure special teams and backup. Spencer Ware got more halfback looks than Davis did. And, West is the Chiefs starter. 3 straight looks inside the Steelers' 10 in the first half. In the second half, 2 cracks from inside the 3, converted the second one for a score. Had a 36-yard rumble up the middle that, wasn't super elite in terms of like what skills he flashed, but he didn't go down easy. And, it was maybe the key play in the game. We have to be convinced by the workload now. So West looks like a pretty okay number 2 rusher for fantasy. I think that Jamal Charles owners can feel a little bit of consolation that at least it appears to be only one guy who's replacing J-Mail. Say this for Landry Jones. It was, hopefully for Steeler fans, his only start of the season, and he threw a brutal interception in the first half and fumbled in a key spot very late, but at least he took shots, right? He came out firing. Martavis Bryant got deep looks right away. He zipped some hard, longer passes to Antonio Brown on the sideline multiple times. His second half strategy appeared to be, let's randomly chuck it up and hope my receivers grab it deep. But you know what? Compared to Mike Vick, oh man, I will take it. And certainly any fantasy owners of the Steelers receivers will take it. Le'Veon Bell, still terrific. There's nothing anyone can really do about this or no action you should take because of this observation. It's kind of alarming to see D'Angelo Williams as the team's short yardage back. Like, it was pretty clear. 2 4th-and-1s in the first half, and D. Willie was in there for both of them. He converted one, he didn't convert the other. And it's like, I totally get why you're doing that because Williams is at the end of the road and Bell is your horse for the next several years, and you'd like to save unnecessary short yardage hits. But speaking as somebody who owns Le'Veon Bell, I would say please don't do that at the goal line, which did not come up in this game. And, the thought is at this point, very early in advance of Week 8, that Ben Roethlisberger will come back for a big matchup against the Bengals, and that's the point in which, we would hope the Steeler offense really takes off. I'm going to have Antonio Brown back well inside my top 5 receivers, if that's the case, and Martavis Bryant deserves, top 10, top 15 consideration. I think this offense will look very, very good once Big Ben is back.
Film Room Surprise.
Falcons-Titans, not exactly an offensive fireworks display, but I'm going to do this game because I feel like Devonta Freeman deserves a Monday review at this point, being the fantasy MVP. What a slacker. No touchdowns. But Freeman did top 100 yards rushing, and it was fun and interesting how it happened. Seemed to me the Titans' defense was well trained to snuff out the stretch plays, those extreme outside zones that Freeman has really been tearing up the league with, and they limited his action there, but the Falcons' offensive line proved it could adjust, and it blocked the hell out of some inside zone runs, and Freeman continued to break chunk plays, and this is not to take anything away from Freeman, but that line, Shanny Jr., offensive coordinator, he's really earned his reputation for being able to coach up an offensive line. You see Tevin Coleman making a few chunk plays, too. This is a case of a back having a really great year and the line supporting him, like Dallas last year with DeMarco Murray. And Freeman actually had a 47-yard run called back for an illegal block in the back by Roddy White, although, to be fair, the illegal block in the back was right in the hole, and it did spring Freeman. My Twitter feed, at Harris Football, is full of folks saying, what's wrong with Matt Ryan? And, results-wise, rightly so. It feels like I keep ranking him as a top 10 fantasy play, and he keeps not delivering. It just hasn't been enough to be the guy who gives Julio Jones his weekly allowance. Folks who followed me for a long time know that I have thought that there's something missing with Ryan for a long time. That one thing that keeps him from the top 10 among NFL quarterbacks, the super elite. He just has that one detonation throw in him, like the terrible fourth quarter end zone interception in this one, where if he makes a better decision and throws a touchdown, his day looks a lot better. it is probably fair to say that Freeman's amazing touchdown streak has been at the heart of Ryan being mediocre for fantasy because, more rushing touchdowns mean fewer passing touchdowns. But, Sunday there weren't any rushing touchdowns, and Ryan didn't do a good enough job with his few chances. Oh, and by the way, thanks, Matt Bryant. I really would have felt covered if you hadn't blown that late field goal. As for the Titans, I keep saying it, there's nothing here, but just to illustrate why Ken Wisenhunt shouldn't be allowed near a backfield, I don't even care about it for fantasy. Just if I'm a Titans fan, I see Antonio Andrews. He's not a great player. I know he's not a great player. He's a big guy. He sort of just hits the hole. He's probably below average NFL running back, but, he had some early game first downs, some barreling runs, kind of a power game that might come in handy as you're trying to keep the Falcons offense off the field, and he just disappears, right? Huge chunk of time, he's just not in there. This is why David Cobb's return has to be seen as nothing more than a flyer. It's a flyer I'd probably take, because who knows, but, there's just very little hope to me that this is anything other than an even more convoluted platoon. Oh, and one more note. Where Justin Hunter's speed really shows up on tape? Chasing down interception returners. Otherwise, it's pretty much just missed opportunities and drops for old Justin Hunter. Finally, let's do Cowboys-Giants. And, of course, an object lesson on the NFL media echo chamber. Started a week ago Monday, which is today. Some running back coach said how Kristen Michael was ready to rock. Some other doofus said the reins were coming off. The DallasCowboys.com propaganda arm of the team breathlessly reported that Michael was taking reps with the starters, and we all had to deal with Kristen Michael yet again. I wrote a piece for Vice Sports last Friday reviewing Michael's game film, such as it is, but also reproducing the chain of tweets that got everyone so nutty. In retrospect, it looks stupid, hilarious. It's the echo chamber, man. From nothing, from some inconsequential tweet, everybody goes bananas. Fortunately, we had Adam Schefter to set us straight before the game actually started. Before we even had to make lineup decisions for the early games, he reported Sunday morning that it would be status quo in the Dallas backfield. Hopefully you didn't start Kristen Michael. And then Joseph Randle busted a few nice runs in the first quarter, but suffered, a back injury or a rib injury. And by the end of the first quarter, he was done. And even then, Michael didn't get his first carry until 5 minutes into the second quarter. And it was Darren McFadden all night long. Even as DMC was getting run to the ground, Michael only came on whenever McFadden basically couldn't stand up anymore. So now what we really need to ask is, instead of about Michael, Darren McFadden had the big day, and, did he do enough to wrestle that job away for himself in Week 8 against Seattle? So first off, we'll just have to see if Joseph Randle is hurt badly. My guess is that he isn't, but who knows? The Cowboys are getting terrible quarterback play. They've lost 4 straight. It wouldn't be a shock if they look at this and said, hell, the only guy who did anything is McFadden, let's play him. But we can't know that. We won't know that. And hopefully we're not going to believe anything any Dallas source leaks. Unless it comes from Schefter, because Schefter is usually right on. Matt Castle. Just about as bad as Brandon Weeden. He took a few more risks than Weeden did, but, he tried to throw a pick six to Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie on the first play of the second quarter. He was not able because DRC dropped the ball, but not to worry. Castle did throw a pick six to DRC in the third quarter. And then the very next series, Cowboys are running it well, and Castle floats a long bomb into double coverage and was picked again. And then another pick to DRC on the first play of the fourth quarter. It's hard to believe, even if Dez Bryant is back against Seattle, that his return is going to make everything right in Dallas because the quarterbacks are just awful. For the Giants, was their offense ever even out there? I'm pretty sure Orleans Darkwa was second in snaps after Shane Vereen, and Vereen got some hurry-up snaps. Otherwise, I think Darkwa was out there more than Rashad Jennings was, and all that does is make it a four-headed monster instead of three. Odell Beckham almost made a one-handed circus touchdown catch at the end of the first half. Couldn't haul it in. Ruben Randle did make a circus one-hander down the right sideline in the third quarter, but then decided, oh yeah, I'm Ruben Randle, and dropped a long one in the fourth quarter. You know, I think it'll be convenient to say that Beckham is limited by his hamstring problem, but we really don't know that. I think he did run a little freer on Sunday than he did against the Eagles in Week 6. The bottom line is Beckham has been quiet 2 games in a row, and it's frustrating. But he's still got 4 touchdowns. So even if he's not the same guy he was in the second half of last year, you're still using him.
Harris's music digression.
This is a great one. I love it. It's so appropriate because Eddie Lacy is off on a bye, presumably indulging his habit. I actually do not think that Eddie Lacy looks particularly fat. However, for the purposes of this song, let's assume that he is. This is Brian Bennett. Thank you, Brian. It's great. I think you'll recognize the song. Let's hit it.
Dear Eddie, I'm writing you cause I can't understand. I had a fat head of you on my wall, you were the man. You used to be a bruiser, man, that wasn't long ago. You took me to the finals, man, we used to be like bros. But recently you look like you put on a pound or 2. 10,000 calories, come on man, put down the food. You're losing all your carries, are you really second string? I took you with my first pick and you can barely breathe. I'm ticked off, best believe I know karate. You don't look like a running back, you look like PJ Raji. Eddie Lazy, you should jog around some parks. You're costing me my season, someone else just picked up starts. It never should have came to this, you used to be my homie. You don't think of me no more, all you think about is hoagies. I'm sorry Eddie, I never meant to be a punk. But if a burger was a beer, man, you would be a drunk.
Today's guest.
And today's guest is our pal Jim McCormick. You can see his writing all over the world of fantasy. He certainly writes for ESPN and other folks. You can find him on Twitter @_Jimmy McCormick. Jim, how are you?
I'm good. I'm the 4th most accurate IDP ranker. I mean, it's
whoa.
This is what I was born for.
All right, so people should take note of that. If you're in an IDP league and you're not following Jimmy McCormick, there are only 3 other people who you could follow who'd be any better.
Right. If those guys block you or they've like a paywall, then come on over.
Come on board. All right, so we're going to continue the film review. I've done a few games, 4 games. I can't even keep track of how many games. The film at this point is all sort of bleeding together. But this first game that we're going to discuss is very dear to your heart. It's Eagles, Panthers, bad eagle hands, or should I say like talons, bad eagle talons. Very contagious, Jim. Around these parts, you may know, we call Jordan Matthews Duck Hands Jr. And that throw behind him on Philly's second possession, of course, he drops it for a pick. You had Zach Ertz drop one late. Miles Austin had one ricochet off his hands on that last 4th down. Even with Jordan Matthews, who has all that potential, are you to the point where, nope, I'm not starting any of these guys?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, Matthews is almost like a lower version of Cooks at this point. You know, Brandon Cook, meaning just there's volume. He's getting 9, 10 targets most games, but there's really nothing coming of it. And we spoke about this before we started recording that, you know, Bradford's not in a position to build confidence with any of these guys. Like, these guys need high percentage. You have to get these guys going somehow, and it's not going to happen with passes at their ankles and exposing them over the middle. And, you know, it really is. It's like they're all yawning. It's contagious.
It's a group yawn.
It is.
They call that neural mirroring.
And it's like too many shakes, Chip. You know, it's like their blood sugar.
Yeah, too many shakes. It's true. Sam Bradford, boy. I mean, you hear announcers make excuses for him because that's what announcers do, right? They're not allowed to be mean to anybody. But if you had truth in advertising and announcers, how much would Chris Collinsworth just be ripping Sam Bradford a new one?
Yeah, I think he actually has like an agenda, like a piece of paper that says say the opposite. Because in the third quarter, he was like, he's been better. This is better than what he's been. And it's like, well, of course, it's relative. I guess, What are you comparing it to? You comparing it to the Giants game? I mean, he's terrible. Like, he's I think on throws past 10 yards, I looked this up a couple weeks ago, but it's really only like him and Ryan Fitzpatrick at the bottom of the rung, like completing like less than 40% of their passes past 10 yards. It's just like, at least Fitzpatrick's serviceable right now. I literally, as an Eagles fan, would want Ryan Fitzpatrick.
That's scary and true, and it's particularly frustrating because the offensive line is starting to get its act together. The pass rush was, got him later, but that was after you run 100 million plays, your offensive line gets tired too. Up until that point, it felt like Bradford had enough time. He's not particularly good at football, which is unfortunate because his chosen profession is football.
It's true. I mean, he's well paid at least, but you're right. The line looked good. DeMarco didn't look, great at all, but he looked serviceable. There was definitely times, like there was one in the first series, there was like, it was the first series, it was 3rd and 1 from the Eagles 30, and he went up the middle, there's just this huge hole. And honestly, if it's Sproles or Matthews, it's probably a 50-yard run. And for him, it was a 13-yard run because contact found him, but, he's still good. It's just that, it's becoming pretty clear, and it's kind of cliche at this point, but Matthews is the better back right now.
Yeah, he had that long touchdown run, Ryan Matthews did. It's funny, though, on that play, the Matthews touchdown play, I had been, right up to that point, for 3 quarters, I had been sort of wondering aloud to co-viewers, why they weren't cutting back runs. Because, right. I mean, and Collinsworth was saying this, the Panthers linebackers want to over-pursue.
Right.
They want to run towards the sideline, and they will be faked out.
Hawks, yeah.
And you cut back, and you take advantage of that over pursuit. It's, Chip is in love with the outside zone.
Oh, he is.
And it worked so well with LaShawn McCoy, and it doesn't work as well now for whatever reason. You don't have LaShawn McCoy on the roster, but it's like, I think Murray would still be making better runs if you would run more inside zone, and I thought against the Giants they did, and then certainly on that Matthews touchdown run they did.
Yeah, and there was even a time, like, actually in the second quarter, DeMarco is the kind of guy that seems to get going, with volume. Like he kind of has to warm up. He definitely looks like a cold start sometimes, like a Volkswagen in December. But like, with 11 minutes left in the second quarter, he bust off a really nice run. He got to the edge actually, which is kind of rare. But like you said, I think some of it had to do with over pursuit, and he really was just meeting safeties at that point because either misdirection or they missed the run. But in general, yeah, like it's going to be frustrating for fantasy owners, I think, because Matthews has to etch a bigger role.
All right, so they're off. Those jokers are off next week, so we can spend 1 week not ranking Jordan Matthews, 23rd among receivers and having him finish 80th.
Yeah, I think he's 49th right now in points per game.
Sweet. So instead of them, let's talk about Panthers. Cam Newton, I think he wound up with roughly 20 fantasy points. Ho-hum. Right,
yep.
This is a game where he throws 3 picks. The first one, I actually thought that Ted Ginn was down. I thought you pretty clearly showed that his shin was down, but what the other 2 interceptions were not good throws. I personally get the feeling when I know the Panthers have to throw, Cam is going to make a mistake, but for fantasy, he's just so rock solid because of the running.
Yeah, I mean, he's on pace for 144 rushes, which would be a career high, and yeah, it's just there every week. I mean, he exposed his $100 million arm, for that touchdown.
Yeah.
And it seemed completely normal. Like anybody else, you would be like, "Oh my! Like, why would Andy Dalton do that? Why would they? Why would he do that anyway? But why would you expose like this asset, for a touchdown when you have running backs? But he is the running back. I mean, he's just an anomaly in terms of what we expect out of, because I know you've said it before in like back in the day at some ranking summits, like. Running quarterbacks generally tend to fade with their usage. Like it doesn't really sustain this far into careers. But this is just a different thing.
He's just so big, and that's what it comes down to. He's just so much bigger than everybody else. It's what stops Newton eventually is the Dante Culpepper injury.
Right.
Right. The knee down the field. The crazy
big one. Right.
But until then, boy. He's just good, and people have wondered why he's been top 5 for me among fantasy quarterbacks every single week. It's you're looking at why. Speaking of the Panthers running back, everybody knows that Stu Beef is one of my favorites. How good was Jonathan Stewart's 2-game performance against Seattle and Philly back-to-back?
I mean, these are really good. I mean, the linebacking core and everything in Seattle is still strong, and you can kind of pick at their defensive line a little bit, but not just being a homer, like actually just like watching a lot of football. The Eagles have one of the top 3 lines in the league.
Absolutely.
And the way that they control gaps and the way that Benny Logan plays, like he's a Pro Bowl level player as well. Fletcher Cox is, in my opinion, obviously a Pro Bowler, but they just. He hides so well. Watching this and Frank Gore, like they're behind guards, they hide so well, and then they just shoot out. He takes what's given to him. He rides. He really pushes the pile always. I can see why you like him because he generally looks good when he's given the work. I think a lot of this year has actually been a lack of work as much as it is a lack of production.
And, of course, you're always just going to have the problem in the goal line, right? Tolbert scores 2 short ones in this one, and Newton scores 1, and,
If you go to the bathroom when that, or go make a sandwich when they're at the goal line, because it's really going to frustrate you if you own Stewart. But, hey, if he's a top 20 to 20 back, like if he's still picking up 100 total yards, then I'm going to take it.
Especially in today's NFL. I mean, he is the walking embodiment of a number 2 fantasy back. He's not going to get it
in the world of LeGarrette Blount.
Yeah, exactly. The zero fat gutted man is not blind or something. I don't know how that phrase goes. Let's move along to Saints Colts. And if you want to know how an inferior team beats a team that's better on paper, don't cover the fake field goal. Commit defensive holding on interceptions, throw really dumb interceptions deep in your own territory, fumble the kickoff after the other team scores. Boy, having watched this tape, do you find the Colts as frustrating as fantasy players and presumably the entire state of Indiana?
I mean, yeah, they're a mess. The irony is that, Sean Payton's going to be coaching the next year, but he actually really enjoyed that game. But yeah, no, Luck just even the plays that worked, like the Hilton. The one big Hilton touchdown, the 87-yarder, he threw it behind him.
Yep.
He had to turn around to catch it, and this was like 2 minutes before. And I know broadcasting is tough, but this was 2 minutes before that they said that they compared Delvin Breaux to Darrelle Revis, that he falls down on himself. And I know he is a pretty good cover corner, but let's relax.
Right.
And then Jarish Byrd, like the greatest mistake. I mean they let Malcolm Jenkins go for nothing basically, and paid this guy this amazing contract. He looked awful. So it was such a result of a bad defense to me that Luck was even able to produce that game. Like the numbers, this is one of those games where the box score completely hides what really happened.
Yeah, Phillip Rivers and Andrew Luck both played so poorly, and were basically saved by comeback efforts / garbage time.
And 40 plus passes,
right.
It can help hide a lot of problems.
Yeah, and boy, Griff Whalen. How is Griff Whalen still on a team this morning after?
And he wasn't even his college roommate,
after the nonsense against the Patriots, and then, I mean, all he did was fumble. The entire day, all he did was fumble. Incredible. All right, so Kyrie Robinson scores 2 touchdowns early in the game from inside Indy's 6, which was a bad start to Mark Ingram owners' day, and Robinson also got stuff from the 1 in the third quarter, although then Ingram came in and converted from the 1. Did it look to you like Robinson is the goal line back, or maybe it's a little bit more random because Ingram did scoop up that 1 touchdown?
I mean, it's hard to say. I'm not Sean Payton, and so I don't know what led them to do that, but it seemed like there was this jumbo package that he was in. It seemed really it didn't seem so random because it was a full shift in a lot of ways. Like they brought in, double tight end set and all this stuff to run those plays. So it seemed like it was in the game script. Like it seemed like the team was prepared for that. It wasn't like they were just calling Ingram out. I think it's just part of this bullpen kind of running back world we're in where, you have specialists and Ingram's a great goal line back himself, dating back to last year, but Robinson is too. So you just have 2 players who have overlapping skills. Yeah,
Kyrie Robinson, a favorite of the program, obviously, and I think there's going to come a point where he's a feature back sometime.
Yeah, he'll have his Michael Turner time.
He's
much better than that. I'm
yeah.
saying he'll have his moment where he goes and actually gets the real workload.
Right. I agree, and it's the Chris Ivory story, really. I mean, it's funny. I mean, I don't just say this because they're both, similar body types with dreads, right? Ivory and Kyrie Robinson really remind me of one another in their running styles.
Yeah, they're quite violent. And yeah, they take out secondary.
They really do.
Members.
Powerful dudes.
It looks like an action movie.
All right, so Ben Watson, coming off of his career day against the Falcons, he probably deserved better, right? He gets tackled, or he steps out at the one on the fake field goal. Mm-hmm. He gets tackled or falls down at the one, right? On a Drew Brees pass. If Watson doesn't fall down, Brees gets another touchdown pass, and the numbers look a little bit better. Overall, it was an okay day. He didn't do his latter day Drew Brees ridiculous interception. I don't think you would chalk this victory up, though, because Brees was great. Let me ask you this question. Sacrilege. Who would you rather have as your fantasy quarterback right now, Brees or Andrew Luck?
I'd rather have Drew Brees.
Wow.
It sounds crazy.
No, it doesn't sound crazy. It just sounds like how far we've fallen.
Luck just looks awful to me right now. And so I could be wrong, and maybe, if that was a direct deal, maybe I'd get swindled, but both have really high volume. I just find that, the one guy doesn't look completely lost.
Yeah, with Brees, it's fascinating because there have been games this year where I didn't think he played well against the Falcons particularly.
No.
I know he didn't play well against the Cowboys.
There's similar games, these last two wins. They're just like the other team showed up and was like, they just took a bong hit or something. Like they just, they really weren't ready.
The bong hit Colts. I think it would actually explain a lot. It certainly would explain the fourth and dumb, right?
It would. I mean, it'd be.
Dude, you know what we should do?
Ryan Grigson signed like an eighth, like for the, for a 2-year deal. It completely overpaid.
He really did. I'm not sure what I would say. I think I would still take Luck. I just have this faith that he'll figure it out. And,
right.
Maybe that's dumb too, though. Like, I'm not going to talk about Chargers-Raiders tape until tomorrow, but, Phillip Rivers was so terrible in that game. For 3 quarters, and it was just a matter of Oakland sitting way back and
right. If they had real playmakers, it might have been a beating.
Right, but, it kind of, it was a beating until it wasn't, right? And Danny Wood had basically caught 700 passes in a row at the end of the game. But, the thing about that is like, okay, I'm going to say Rivers played bad, but you know what Phillip Rivers' fantasy owners are doing?
They're loving it.
Laughing because, 1 week they're in the game and he throws for 500, and the next week they're completely blown out and he plays terrible but still saves them. Like, for fantasy purposes, eventually I think it catches up to Rivers and maybe it catches up to Luck. Because, Luck didn't deserve the fantasy points he got in this game. But, yeah, I mean, it's really frustrating. And I think the doubters of Andrew Luck, anybody who took him in the first round is not feeling very good.
No, I mean, it feels pretty Staffordy, actually. Like, he came off that 5,000, 40-yard,
Yeah.
Here's one question, though. I was looking this up, and how much does this even apply to, like, not the fantasy sense, but the quality of quarterback that he actually is that, like, Luck is, like, 28th since he's joined the league in completion percentage. I think it's only Brandon Weeden, Chadwick Henne, and Geno Smith are the only guys who've completed a fewer amount of their passes. I know that's a surface stat. It doesn't tell us too much, but it kind of does. I mean, you want to complete the ball. You want, and so he's a sub 60% guy. He's 58.3. He's doing that again. Is that something like it just seems like we gloss over his numbers, or the football community glosses over his numbers a lot, and because the volume and the touchdowns are there. Is there anything to that? Like, what does that mean?
And plus interceptions. Look at the interception numbers, and he threw a Lulu deep in his own territory. Like, it was a bad pick. What I think first and foremost what it means, I mean, he is not careful with the ball. That's first and foremost. But also look at the offense that they run. They are not running the modern NFL offense.
No.
They are running 7-step drops, pat the ball, wait for guys to get down the field, and chuck it. It's the same thing you're going to see tonight with Carson Palmer. Mm-hmm. These are 2 total throwback offenses to 10 years ago, 7 years ago. They don't do the dink and dunk thing. They don't do the West Coast thing even a little bit.
No, it's downfield.
And that's supposed to be good for fantasy. In Palmer's case, it has been. But when it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Did you find anything troubling with Moncrief's usage? I mean, Dante Moncrief was kind of living on the fact that he was getting the same. I mean, I guess last year you saw Hilton and Reggie Wayne almost get the same amount of targets. So I guess maybe it's possible.
Well, so I mean, neither. So Moncrief had a nice catch called back for offensive holding. Right. I can't remember.
Yeah,
so
it was holding.
It would look better. He gets the late touchdown to save you. But frankly, I mean, did Hilton's usage look any good until basically 2 defensive backs fall down?
No, right. Yeah.
So I think it's sort of a matter of Andre Johnson got a couple of catches at the very end, right on the second to last drive, I guess. No, I'm not troubled by Moncrief. I think he's what he's going to be. Maybe though, if Luck deserves the downgrade that you're implying, which you could absolutely be right, then maybe we're ranking both of those guys too high.
My downgrade also, admittedly, like, and this is purely speculation, but he just doesn't look right. I don't think the shoulder's right. Like, he missed a couple really completable throws. Now, I just talked about he doesn't have a good completion percentage, but he left some really simple stuff on the ground, literally on the ground. Like, he just passed to the carpet.
Monday night preview.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Ravens-Cardinals. Wide receivers on their hamstrings. Ugh. I think
double hammy.
Yeah, the double hammy. I think the thing that will get the most attention heading into this game is John Brown, the double hammy. First we'll have the question of whether he's going to be active, and it would almost maybe be doing fantasy owners a favor if he's inactive, as long as folks have an alternative, because if he's active, then we have to worry about how much he's able to do. So let me just play the thought experiment with you that he is active. If you waited on him, but you had, say, Michael Floyd or Kamar Aiken, are you using John Brown?
I would use John Brown.
Okay.
If he's active. I know there's, of course, the decoy risk and all these things, and they do have capable alternatives. Like, Floyd's been getting a lot more work, season high in snaps last week. At the same time, he drops a lot of balls and isn't the most trustworthy asset. I guess I don't know. I mean, I read an article on Saturday that basically spoke to that he feels confident, he looks good, and he's ready to go. How do I value that? I don't know. But if he's active and ready to play, I'm going to play him. They're not going to force feed him. If this isn't Steve Smith, who if he plays, you get him out there, because even if he's on one leg, he's going to get 15 targets. But I don't know. I just think if Brown's out there, I'm playing him, only because the alternatives tonight don't sound that interesting.
Speaking of Smith, if you waited for him, it's probably not worth having a conversation about using him, right? You're using him. But
the Patrick Peterson shadow, though.
Exactly. Well, I mean, that's all you ever hear. That's all you ever hear with about 10 different defensive backs on my Twitter feed, anyway.
Right. But he's being covered.
Right. I love how the narrative became Buffalo stops number one receivers, so you can't use Allen Robinson.
Yeah, Delvin Breaux is on you, man.
I can't do this, Stop looking at stats. Stop looking at numbers. My goodness. Stop with this. I know one of the websites has, this team against number one wide receivers, and I just think that is so destructive. That's the yards per carry of wide receiver. Anyway, but so it's too late to do anything about Steve Smith, but, do you fear for his production? It sounds like you do not.
Not really. I mean, they're going to get him the ball. He's going to get a ton of looks. And if we are to buy this game script idea that that Vegas is promoting, a huge over/under, huge point total, and they're pretty big dogs, you would think game flow would suggest that there could be some passing here for Joe Flacco, because they have to almost. So,
and there's almost no chance. There's almost no chance that a team doesn't need to pass in today's NFL, and if the Ravens need to pass, it's going to Steve Smith. I mean,
exactly.
And he's a zone beater. That's the thing. Is every team plays zone. Stop with the blanket coverage. It doesn't happen. That's not today's NFL.
He'll find his spots.
That's right. All right. So finally, last thing, Andre Ellington. Interesting. Because, again, if you waited for Andre Ellington, you probably don't have a lot of other alternatives. But he's played 13 and 9 snaps in his first 2 games back from his knee injury. Usage is the thing that we can't really predict. We can't really legislate it. And Chris Johnson didn't look particularly good last week. Let's not even talk about so much tonight, because, again, it's a Monday night game. The die is cast. You're using him or you're not using him. We've talked some on the podcast, and you've probably listened a little bit because I know you listen to the show. Do you feel like eventually the worm is going to turn away from Chris Johnson and towards either Ellington or David Johnson?
I do. I mean, it's just, I think it's smart to fade Johnson. I think almost everybody would do that.
Chris Johnson.
I'm sorry, yeah, Chris Johnson. But yeah, no, Ellington, he should never get back to that volume he had before, where Arians was basically saying, he's a 25 touch back. That should never happen again, but I could really see him being the most valuable fantasy back going forward. That's not crazy at all to me. Especially, he's in the NFC's best offense right now. So it doesn't take much. One more bad Chris Johnson performance, and we might be there.
Right, and the fact is, it's where it's probably headed is some kind of annoying committee where it's not Chris Johnson, but it's probably not anybody all the way. And cousin Josh might be right. Maybe David Johnson, because he's the goal line back now. It seems like maybe he's the guy.
Maybe he's like the Week 13 hero.
Yeah,
could be. Know.
Jim, you're the man. Thank you so much for watching the tape and for talking about a couple of these games with us and previewing Monday night. You can follow Jim on Twitter only if you are interested in the 4th best IDP advice, because if you want top 3 advice,
And that's just now. I mean, it could change.
Right. He doesn't have it for you. He does not have top 3 advice. You can follow him at _Jimmy McCormick. Awesome to have you on again, Jim. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much. And keep this show's been great. It's a daily fantasy escape.
And that's our podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Continues to mean the world to me that you all listen in such abundance. Tomorrow, I will finish up the game tape review, and then Sig Bloom will come aboard and we'll discuss the wonderful world of waivers for Week 8. Don't forget to grab some Harris Football merch from our website. All profits go to charity, and it's fun stuff. Hey, thanks again. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
The Harris Football Podcast's opening theme is Under the Gun by Apex Manor. The end theme is Tooth and Claw by OU Villain. Subscribe to the Harris Football Podcast on iTunes and never miss an episode.